Dynamite Network presents Football Time.
Hey, and welcome to the Football Time Show. We're here for week 3 in college football. A lot of action this week.
A lot.
Dynamite, are you ready to get into it? We got a lot of games on the best games of the week list.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to our pick section. I just kept finding pick after pick that I really liked this week.
Yeah, this is it's not like high end like we had in week 1 where you had sort of marquee matchups, but there are a lot of good matchups this week. I looked at them on Sunday night, Monday morning, and I was like, oh no, we're gonna have a long show here.
Buckle up.
Yes, I know. All right, so let's get into it because we got a lot of games to break down. Let's start out with the Nebraska Cornhuskers versus the Oklahoma Sooners in 1988. This would have been one hell of a game.
Yeah.
Maybe not in 88. I think Oklahoma was in trouble then, but somewhere hovering in the 80s. This would have been one hell of a game. Not so much anymore. Oklahoma 22-point favorites. Total sits at 61.5. Are you gauging anything off Nebraska's? I'd say pretty solid defensive performance, at least versus Buffalo.
Yeah, I thought it was really surprising. I actually thought Buffalo was going to dominate that game. So I don't know whether to evaluate that as Buffalo having a big letdown or Nebraska stepping up, but they've managed to put together 2 wins, which is getting close to the total I thought they would have for the season. Yeah. But now they're getting into the meat of their schedule and having to play this road game at Oklahoma. Defensively, they may be able to slow this game down to keep it close to the spread. I just don't know if they have the offensive firepower to keep up with Oklahoma.
Yeah, I have to admit, coming into this, I thought it'd be pure blowout to Oklahoma. I watched Nebraska last week. Offense, I'm still, waiting for that to come around. But defensively, they might be able to control the game a little bit on Oklahoma if they can find any way to sort of run the football, not just with their quarterback, but with their running backs. Maybe this game stays a little bit tighter than I thought it would, maybe 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But I still think Oklahoma runs away with this. And, also I have a feel that Oklahoma will want to run away with this and pile up points. They weren't being all that kind last week as well versus the powerhouse in Western Carolina.
Yeah.
For some reason, Oklahoma felt it necessary to score 76 points to prove some sort of point. I don't know what it was, but they won big versus Western Carolina. But I'm a little more intrigued in this one than I was a couple weeks ago. Maybe Nebraska's defense can keep them in it just enough to make this a hint of a game. I don't know if a great game comes, but maybe a little closer than we thought a week or 2 ago. Next up, I think this game lost a little luster after we watched Indiana play the first couple weeks, but still a big time matchup here. Certainly coming into the year, Cincinnati at Indiana. Cincinnati is 3.5-point favorites. You think that's a little low? I thought it was low at first glance, but I'm starting to pull back a little bit. I know Cincinnati's defense will be right there, and you watched Indiana versus Iowa just get shut down by the defense, but I want to see where the Cincinnati offense sits. So what do you make of this game?
I look at it as a game that Cincinnati's just going to dominate. I'm all over Cincinnati here. I don't quite understand the small line. I mean, we've been talking about Cincinnati having playoff potential.
Yeah.
And Indiana's not nearly what I thought they were going to be at the year. Penix hasn't really been performing. And I think Cincinnati's defense is going to give Indiana all sorts of fits. Question a little bit being in Indiana, but I don't know if that's a huge home field advantage. But so we'll see. I really like Cincinnati here.
I think it's bigger than it used to be. I'll say that. But there still probably be just enough Cincinnati fans as there will Indiana fans at this one. Do you take anything from Indiana's win last week versus Idaho, or is that just, run it up? This means nothing sort of game?
Yeah, I think they're just trying to, get their confidence back offensively and, score some touchdowns, maybe get a little momentum going into this big game. But I don't think they're on the same level as Cincinnati.
Yeah, I just pulled back a little bit because I want to see where Cincinnati's offense is. That has been their questions in the past.
Yep.
Maybe this turns into a little bit of a defensive contest, more so than, Cincinnati being able to run it up. We haven't really seen Cincinnati really have to put on the offense in a marquee game since last year. So it'll be interesting to where it was. That's why I pulled back a little bit on this one. Certainly at the beginning of the week, I was like, why is this so low? But I've sort of cooled on it a little bit. We'll see if I warm back up on it by Saturday. Next up, interesting game.
One of the biggest games of the weekend, I think.
Yeah, a fun Big East showdown here. Nobody under the age of 30 knows what the hell I'm talking about, but once upon a time, Virginia Tech, West Virginia, and Miami ruled the Big East, and this is a big-time rivalry game. West Virginia comes in as 3-point favorites. I know you were pretty high on them to start the year. Had a get-right game, West Virginia did last week. Virginia Tech starts out the year 2-0. Wasn't pretty versus Middle Tennessee State, but got the job done. Offensively, I think they've been a little bit disappointing, but defensively, it's come right back up. Where do you make this game sit?
Well, I love West Virginia's defense, and I love West Virginia at home. So those two things are going against Virginia Tech there. But I've really been surprised by this Virginia Tech team, both just defensively. They showed up that big game week 1. Yeah. And I think this is their real big statement win. If they can get this one today, that shows that win over North Carolina wasn't just a fluke. But it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be an ugly game. I think that line is right on the money. There's one way I'm leaning, but I think this could go either way.
Yeah. I was leaning a little bit Hokies to start the week. And then once again, I started to dive more and more in. And you look at some of the pressure numbers of that Virginia Tech quarterback. When he faces pressure, he's really, really struggled. Now, it's a very small sample size. It's hard to gauge. But the one thing I know West Virginia can do, they will be able to get, pressure on the quarterback, be able to play solid defense. So I want to see if that Virginia Tech offense, which has sort of struggled, did not look great versus North Carolina, won the game, did not look great versus Middle Tennessee, coming up a big-time defense, can they put the points on the board? And then, counter to that, there's just no telling what you're getting from West Virginia on the offensive side of things. I think we saw that in the opening week versus Maryland, which really is what cost them the game there. So, interesting game. I'm very curious to see how it plays out. Slight edge, I think, to West Virginia because it is, in
not a very long road trip for Virginia Tech, though.
But tough place to go into and win. So it should be an entertaining game. Next up, small school marquee game of the week. Lost a little luster with the way Buffalo played last week, but Coastal Carolina goes to Buffalo. Coastal Carolina, 13-point favorites. How the times have changed here. Coastal's offense has been ridiculous. I think it's number one in a lot of metrics here. Buffalo was playing good defense in that Nebraska game, but the offense couldn't find a way.
On offense.
What do you make here? Can Buffalo find their offense here? Maybe that defense sort of slows Coastal Carolina down, or do you think this is just a runaway?
I think this is going to be a runaway. I think while Coastal Carolina's defense may not be quite as dominant as they were last year, it'll be dominant enough for this Buffalo team. They haven't been able to put together anything offensively. I'm starting to get really concerned about them. So I like Coastal Carolina.
Any truth to the rumor that Buffalo is trying to move this game to November?
Get a little bit more home field against Coastal Carolina there.
When it's -2 degrees and snowing, Coastal might have a little bit more of a challenge. So maybe a little bit of not great scheduling for Buffalo. It's not quite too cold yet. So really interesting game to see if Buffalo can sort of bounce back and find some offense there. But, the more I look at this, I think Coastal's going to run away with it. The only thing I sort of check on the Coastal side, I haven't thought that defense has quite been up to the level it was last year. Now, they lost a couple guys, but we'll see where this one lands overall. Next up, Miami continues its trend of big week games. I think this is a third week in a row. They played a pretty marquee style game. Michigan State goes to Miami. Miami's looked inconsistent. Michigan State has looked really, really good. Competition has not been great for Michigan State. So I'm curious your feel on this, Michigan State team. Is it, are they ready to win a game like this versus Miami where their speed will not be evident in this game where it's been in the previous two games where you see receivers blowing past people? They aren't going to blow past people in this one. So where do you see Michigan State sitting on this one?
I'm really leaning Michigan State here. I don't have a bet in this game, but I'm falling in love with their run offense. Now we'll see how it does on the road at Miami, which is a really just athletically talented team. They haven't quite been able to get that talent to click right and make the plays when they need to. But on paper, Miami is the most talented team here. But I almost want to give the edge to Michigan State.
Yeah, I don't think Michigan State can win this game. Now, spread-wise, Miami sits at 6. Thought that was a little bit too high with the way Miami's playing. I see it sort of playing out a lot like the Appy State game where Miami's sort of talent and athleticism sort of edges them there.
Kind of similar teams as well.
Exactly. But I just don't know if the consistency's there for Miami. Now, if Miami puts a consistent game together, both offensively and defensively, I think there's a bigger chance for Miami to run away with it. But what we've seen so far, I think this is a pretty tight game. So I don't like the 6 in this, but I don't know if I'm ready to talk myself into Michigan State going down there and winning in Miami. It'll be a little toasty down there as well at a noontime game. So.
Yeah, that'll be probably the 90s close to it.
So that will be interesting to see how Michigan State goes into that and starts sweating away some pounds by the second half. All right, next up, little MAC Big Ten action.
I love my action.
Northern Illinois has been a little spunky the first 2 weeks
surprised me,
of the season. They're going to have to be a lot spunky this week. Versus Michigan, this matchup sits at 27. I thought it was high looking at it, but, the more I think Northern Illinois is going to come back to earth a little bit. I don't love the Michigan Wolverines, but I do think they're sort of back into their little comfort zone as a, 9-10 win team that can beat everybody but the Ohio States, Wisconsins, and Michigan States of the world. So what do you make of this one?
Yeah, I started looking at this and I made a snap reaction early on in the week. And the more and more I think about it, I'm kind of leaning towards you. Michigan they really got a confidence builder last week. They needed that. They needed a team like Washington, who's a big name, but so the win, had something behind it. But then again, is Washington
when Washington's 2-10, we don't look at it the same.
But for Michigan's momentum going into the rest of the season, that doesn't matter right now.
Yes,
they think they can hang with the big dogs, and that's what they need now. Northern Illinois is not anywhere close to the big dogs. But
Jordan Lynch not returning, or the burner Turner.
Yeah, but 27 points is a lot here. I think Northern Illinois' offense this year is actually surprisingly capable of putting up points. I think if Michigan wants to win by 27, they're going to have to score probably in the 40s.
Yeah, that was the only thing I sort of questioned on this number.
I like that spread.
Michigan got there versus Western Michigan, and I think we both think Western Michigan's probably the better team in that matchup. But I don't know if Michigan can hit that number this week. Especially after what I saw in the passing game the week before. And Northern Illinois has been a little spunky. Maybe we underrated them to start the year.
Yep. And
maybe they're going to be, I don't think they'll be a great team in the MAC, but they might end up winning more games than we thought in the MAC with the way we've seen them play the first 2 weeks of the season. So that'll be interesting to see where that Michigan State's offense sits. A little MAC versus ACC action in our next game. I think we both had a solid little MAC feel. I think you backed off of it a little bit, but I'm still eyeing this, especially money line wise. This just feels like one of those games where Pitt really, really lets down. But Western Michigan comes to Pitt here. Pitt's 15-point favorites. From what I saw from Pitt, I think if you can get them into a close game in that fourth quarter, problems will start to rise. You saw that last about 8 minutes versus Tennessee.
Yeah.
They really, really had trouble. If Tennessee could have put anything together, they would have won that game. The question is, can Western Michigan sort of do a Toledo and keep this thing close into the fourth quarter?
I don't know if Western Michigan has the offensive firepower for that. I wasn't as big on Western Michigan as you were in our preseason. I initially saw this spread and I was like, ooh, that could be an upset special there. But I think Pittsburgh offensively is going to be a little bit too much here. So I'm going to stay away from this one, I think.
Now, how long does Pitt go trying to run the ball before they discover they cannot run the ball?
That may have just been against Tennessee's defense there. I don't know.
I don't have a great feel spread-wise in this one because Western Michigan, I thought, was a little bit disappointing, but versus Michigan, I thought that game would be a little bit closer. And, but I still think Western Michigan has the sort of build for an upset here. They had a okay win versus Illinois State. And then I mentioned that Michigan game where they gave up 47, only got 14. I thought they'd be more in the 20 range in that game, only able to get 28 in the Illinois State game, but they did get the shutout there. And this just feels like one of those games that Pitt sort of lets down. I don't know if they out and out lose, but I do feel like it's one of those in the fourth quarter where we're like, oh, Western Michigan's up 12-10 in this game. What's wrong with Pitt? And, so I'm very curious to see how Pitt bounces off a quote unquote big time win in Tennessee. Will be interesting to see how Pitt bounces back and now for some reason getting some ACC love in there. But next up, interesting game, Boston College at Temple. Boston College quarterback out for this one and out for a substantial amount of time. Temple has not shown much this year, had a nice bounce back win, but a terrible loss to Rutgers. Boston College offense has looked really, really good. They did give up 28 points to UMass last week. So where are you sitting on this one? This is that fun noon Temple game. Those are always fun in the cavernous stadium of the Eagles that has no fans in it.
I'm hoping that this isn't on TV 1 through 4 because this is not going to be a fun game to watch. It's I think Boston College will take care of business, but I don't know in what fashion they're going to take care of business. So Temple very well could stay within that spread. They got a little bit of a decent win, I guess, against Akron last week. Put up a lot of points now. Boston College is no Akron. But I think, Boston College going on the road, they're just going to want to get this win, get back to business and get everybody healthy. But this could very well be a 17-3 game. And I just don't know how entertaining that's going to be, but I'm staying away.
Yeah. The only thing I could say is Boston College has been a little bit more offensive and a little less defensive than they have in years past. And, Temple was terrible defensively versus Rutgers. Probably you wouldn't say much better versus Akron if you're giving up 24 points to Akron, whether you score 45 or not. That's not the greatest thing in the world. So this should just – I don't have a field game, but I'm curious to see how this plays out for Boston College. They've started out 2-0. Now losing their quarterback hurts a little bit. I think that hurt them a little bit in that UMass game.
Definitely.
But we'll see how they bounce in this one. Very interesting game with Boston College, 16-point favorites on the road in those noon Temple games. I don't like those so much. All right. Speaking of a sort of weird good game of the week, Minnesota goes to Colorado. Colorado coming off I don't know if we call it an impressive performance versus A&M, a interesting performance.
They almost knocked off the second best team in the West.
10-7 final in that one.
Still a top 10 team.
So that's correct. Minnesota comes in here, struggled with Miami of Ohio. Played a good game versus Ohio State. But really, if you look at it, since that running back went out in the third quarter, they have not been the same team. I worry a little bit here about Minnesota. Colorado comes in as 2-point favorites. What do you make of Minnesota here?
Yeah, Minnesota's offense just really ran through Ibrahim, and with him gone, they just haven't been able to find their footing. And I just like Colorado defensively. They made a really ugly game against A&M. Couldn't quite get the win, but I think they're going to make another ugly game against Minnesota this weekend and probably will pull it off.
Yeah, I just don't quite know where I sit with either. I don't know where I sit with Colorado. Their offense has been suspect. The defense has theoretically been good, but I don't totally buy it. Minnesota, I'm a little more out on. I thought they'd struggle in that Miami of Ohio game. They definitely did. And I just think it will continue to compound. But I don't know if Minnesota is quite bad enough to lose to Colorado. But, Colorado has that home field advantage in Boulder. So a tough place to go. So should be interested to see how that game plays out. I probably lean a little towards Colorado, but I don't like that they're favored in that one. I would not ever be on the Colorado favorite territory, no matter where they're playing. Anyway, let's go to Nevada versus Kansas State.
Another big game.
This one, very, very interesting. It loses a little bit because Skylar Thompson got hurt. He'll be out. Will Howard comes in now. He's played plenty. He split time with Skylar. He played pretty much all of last year when Skylar got hurt. So he will know the offense and he has seasoned. So it's not like they're coming in with a total newbie. But it changes Kansas State's offense. Essentially, they can run sort of that pistol-y option type thing with Skylar. Will's more of a pocket thrower. So it alters it a little bit, but the coach also runs a lot of pro sets out of his North Dakota State stuff. So it's not totally like they can get totally out of their offense, but they are a very run-heavy team. Nevada, very, very good on the offensive side of the ball. But this Kansas State defense has been pretty good. So a really interesting game here. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, I was actually big on both of these teams when they did their conference. We did their conference previews. I like Nevada's offense. I really like Kansas State's offense when Skylar Thompson's running the ship. I'm concerned about their just run game and offensive diversity without him in the game. And I think, playing in K-State's going to be a little tough for Nevada, but I actually like them. I like Nevada here. I think they're going to go in and get it done.
Yeah, I'm a little torn here because I wonder if Nevada's offense struggles a little bit versus K-State, a similar type team to Cal, where Nevada's offense struggled a little bit. So I want to see where that sits. I want to see how they travel to Kansas State, a pretty difficult place to play in Manhattan. But I want to see if Kansas State can match up, offensively versus, a really high powerhouse team. This game probably will be determined on whose play style gets in here. If Nevada's high-paced offensive play style gets in there, or if Kansas State's run, slow, methodical pace takes over in this one.
Yeah, I think if it's a slow, ugly game, Kansas State definitely has the edge here. But Nevada managed to pull that one off in Cal. So I see this could be a similar type game, and I think Nevada's in for a big year.
Yeah, should be an entertaining one. Definitely one of the better ones of the day.
Yeah,
next up,
forward to it.
Another pretty entertaining one, I think, Purdue versus Notre Dame. Purdue's had two sort of hand-me wins, depending on your thoughts on Oregon State, but they got that win and then had a pretty easy blowout win the next week. Notre Dame has struggled in two games, one versus Florida State, which doesn't look as great a win there, and then just squeaking by Toledo, a game they probably should have lost. So this is an interesting sort of divergent. Purdue coming in red hot, playing good offensive football. Notre Dame coming in struggling 2-0, but it's not a pretty 2-0. So what do you make of this one?
No, well, I've been staring at this line all week. I haven't made a decision on it yet, but you almost want to lean Notre Dame here because when these guys get their scares and they still manage to get the win, does that get them more mentally prepared? Hey, we're capable of losing. We need to come out and play our best ball here. Or are they just really not that good? Now, this is probably the best team that Brahms had in Purdue, and they're much better offensively. They're really turning things around, and this is a huge game for them. But I don't know. I'm staying away at the moment, but 7.5 is a lot for Purdue.
Yeah, I talked myself into Purdue here, but I will admit I'm very, very scared. I've been going back and forth. You still have to sort of talk yourself into Purdue going into Notre Dame and winning a game here.
It's not basketball.
Yes, it's not basketball. That's correct. And even then,
even then.
But Notre Dame has just looked so bad. They've looked poor offensively. They've looked not quite as strong defensively. Purdue has looked better defensively than they have in years past, and that offense has really been humming along. It's hard to gauge what you make of that UConn game, but they did get a shutout. And, Purdue getting shutouts in the previous 10 years is very, very far between no matter who they played. So I just think Purdue is playing the better football right now. So getting them 7 points, I think we probably put Purdue over Toledo. And it didn't look like, Toledo was that much of a different than Notre Dame. Toledo had a good game plan, managed to execute it. So I think Purdue can go in there, but I have to admit, I am a little nervous that the good Notre Dame game comes around. And then all of a sudden we're staring at more 35-21 type game.
Like I said, I think if this game happens week 1, I don't know if that's be big on Purdue then, but I think Notre Dame getting the 2 scares before this game does not help Purdue.
Yeah, I think they're sort of battle tested now. Then they've definitely played a harder schedule than Purdue. Say what you want about Florida State, they still have live bodies in there, some of which will be playing in the NFL, and that Toledo game is difficult. Meanwhile, Purdue has played Oregon State and UConn, so that level is vastly different in the two. So gonna lean Purdue because I just think Notre Dame's on a little bit of a downswing here, but we'll see if Notre Dame finds its game in this one. All right, next up, big SEC battle, at least in paper. Does it become one? Alabama 15-point favorites versus Florida. Florida has said they are going to rotate quarterbacks. I don't know if that works versus Alabama. I don't know if anything works versus Alabama. But what do you make of this one? Alabama is going into the swamp. Money has come in on Florida. I don't know how much of that is hopeful thinking that people want Alabama to lose, and how much of that is just people think Florida is good. I lean the other way. I think this one's probably going to be a pretty big waxing, but where are you sitting on it?
I mean, I've already said this, since week 1, this Alabama team is probably close to the most impressive I've seen in the last 10 years. And that's an Alabama team that's won with 5 of the last 10 national championships. But this defense is scary good. I mean, they have an NFL defense right now. And I don't know if Florida pulls it off. Now, if Richardson, if he's healthy and he can go at quarterback, I like Florida better with him and running the offense. I think that fits Mullen's play style a lot more. And I think it might throw off Bama's game plan a little bit. But the only way Florida's even going to have a shot in this game is if they win the turnover margin by 2 or 3 turnovers, I'd say at least. Alabama's going to have to make some mistakes, and they're just a team that doesn't make mistakes.
Yeah, I think that's what scares me here. I think Alabama's defense will be able to control Florida's offense no matter who's, playing quarterback. We both agree. I think that the Richardson guy has at least played much, much better this year. The offense has looked better, but looked better versus a very soft opposition. The step up from what Florida has played into what they're about to walk into. And the thing that scares me about this is I think Alabama's defense can control Florida. And I've been I don't think Florida has the defense that they've had in years past to sort of pressure maybe some young Alabama players on the offensive side of things into turnovers that they will need to sort of keep this game close. That being said, it's a redshirt freshman quarterback coming into the swamp. That's a little difficult. Some renew receivers, but I feel like Alabama's line's so good that they can protect Bryce Young. They can always just fall back onto that running game, and Bama can sort of pick the way they want to beat them up.
I will say I'm a little concerned with Alabama's rush offense this year. I think they came out the last few games, they're averaging like 35 carries per game, but only averaging like 100 and something rushing yards. So the average isn't there. But I just don't think they have to lean on their offense as much this year as they had in years past. And points are going to be very hard to come by against this Bama team.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on to Kent State. Had a nice win last week versus Iowa, who's had two nice wins here. Iowa's offense has been not great before, but that defense has been on an elite level. Kent State, little bit spunky here on the offensive side of things. Is there any way they can go into Iowa and sort of mess with them a little bit?
I don't think so. They may stay within the spread just because Iowa's not probably they're probably already looking ahead on their schedule, thinking, hey, maybe we can win the Big Ten.
Yes.
Kent State might catch them sleeping a little bit, but I think just vanilla Iowa alone is good enough to beat Kent State. But I don't know if it covers that spread or not.
Yeah, that's the only thing I'm curious about this matchup. Iowa's basically played the first two games where they're like, our offense is going to sit and do base pretty much AA on Madden, just let the halfback run up the middle or just a simple pass. And then, let the other team's offense make the mistake and we'll score off that. Now there's something to be said that Iowa's defense can force those mistakes, but I'm wondering if maybe a Kent State team whose offense, I think we both agree is a pretty good offense, especially for the MAC. And then maybe those mistakes don't come. And what if Iowa gets pushed on that offensive side of things to where they have to actually score some points in a game?
I just don't know if I see it.
Yeah, I admit Kent State versus A&M, they couldn't find the offense there.
Yeah.
But I think A&M's defensive speed is a little bit different than Iowa's. Iowa's more of a physical type defense. So I'm just curious to see if somebody on the offensive side of the ball can score some points. And then we see if Iowa can come back and actually score points or just have their defense basically win games for them, which they've sort of done, the first 2 weeks. So it'll be interesting. I think the defense has like 4 touchdowns and the offense has somewhere around that as well. So they're pretty much battling even on the defensive offensive side of things. I don't know if Kent State quite has it. But it is an offensive team that I think at least in theory can score points. And then I want to see what Iowa has if teams, score a couple touchdowns on them and don't give them points back. So I'm curious about that one. Next up, Clemson, after a get-right game, plays Georgia Tech, who in theory had a opening get-right game and lost, and then had another get-right game and got right in that one.
Yeah.
So Clemson, Georgia Tech, 28.5 for Clemson here. What do you make of this large spread? Do we trust Clemson's offense again to cover a 28.5 point spread? Or
I think I trust Clemson's defense here. I don't think Georgia Tech's going to score very much here. In fact, I'd be close to maybe even leaning the under here because I think Clemson's going to be scoring all the points. I don't know if they score 50 plus, but I think it's going to be definitely a one-sided game for sure.
Yeah, I sort of am going to knock away that Northern Illinois game. Georgia Tech seemed to play a little bit better versus Kennesaw State. Now that's Kennesaw State, but at least they scored points. And maybe it was just one of those weird, opening things, and Georgia Tech gets back right. They end up with 5-6 wins, and you're like, how the hell did they lose that opening game? So I'm just curious more so to see where Clemson sits here. Do their offensive issues present themselves? Is their line going to have trouble blocking Georgia Tech, who I still wouldn't call a great defense? But if, Clemson's line is struggling blocking them and struggling scoring points, I think we see there is a chance where Clemson can lose more games if they struggle in this one. if they seem to be able to bully Georgia Tech pretty good,
Yeah.
I think we'll see the level, and there won't be that many tests for Clemson in the rest of the ACC. But it's an interesting test case here for Clemson to see if that offense can find ways versus poor but okay teams than just out and out great teams like Georgia. So it'll be an interesting spot to see where Clemson sits in the ACC, truly. All right, Tulsa coming to Ohio State. Tulsa awful the first game, little better the second game. Do we get greatness out of Tulsa in the third game? Ohio State, poor defense. Really 3 games in a row. I heard a stat that if you start back in the Alabama championship game, go to Minnesota, and then go into the game last week versus Oregon, the last time they've given up that many points in a 3-game stretch, 1891.
Wow.
So it's been a while since the Ohio State defense has been this bad for a 3-game stretch. I don't think Tulsa quite has the offense to live up to this. The Tulsa defense is, I call solid. Any chance here where the Tulsa defense can sort of keep them in the game and Ohio State's defensive woes come into play, or is this just going to be a straight blowout?
I think it's going to be a straight blowout. I think Ohio State is looking to exact revenge. They've got their home crowd, and they're going to take it out on Tulsa.
Yeah, I pretty much lean in that way. I am curious to see how Tulsa's defense stands up on this Ohio State offense. The quarterback has shown when he gets out of that pocket and gets off schedule, he's a little bit erratic. So maybe something like that keeps Tulsa in the game a little bit, but I just don't think Tulsa quite has the talent this year. If you can bring back last year's team, I'd be a little bit more interested, but I don't think the Tulsa team this year quite has the talent to match up in this game. All right, interesting game here. Southern Miss has gotten off to a really good start. Southern Methodist. Yeah. Southern Miss is what I said. Yes. All right. Southern Miss hasn't gotten off quite to the same start as Southern Methodist, but SMU at Louisiana Tech, tough place to go. Louisiana Tech played a pretty good game versus Mississippi State, then played a pretty bad game versus Southeastern Louisiana. Southern Methodist, I keep wanting to say Southern Miss for some reason. SMU, thank you. Much bigger program than Southern Miss, at least before they were hammered with the death penalty, and they've been trying to come back ever since. But anyway, started out really, really well. 35-12 win versus North Texas, and then 56-9 versus Abilene Christian. We can sort of wipe that one away. But anyway, a lot of points for Southern Methodists here. What do you make of this matchup at Louisiana Tech? Tough place to go. We've seen good and we've seen bad from Louisiana Tech.
Louisiana Tech is just one of those weird teams that you just don't want to play because no matter how much better you are than them or how close it is, they're going to make this game a game, I think. They're just not a team that gets blown out very often. And I think this spread could be a little large. I think SMU wins for sure, but I just don't know if they quite cover that large spread.
The spread seemed big to me. I couldn't quite lean to Louisiana Tech because I'm very curious how good this SMU team is. We did our preview. I think we didn't quite know how good SMU. We thought there could be a good play here, and we thought maybe mediocre 6-7 win play, but it'll be interesting this will be a good test game, them going on the road to Louisiana Tech. If they blow this game out and win big, I think we got to take SMU a little more seriously. If it's a tight close game, I think we sort of know where SMU's level is, but I think it'll be an entertaining game. So really curious to see how SMU battles out in this one. All right. Speaking of battle out, Florida State goes to Wake Forest. I would like to say Florida State has dominated this game for numerous years, but Wake has actually been dominating this series of late. What does Florida State have? Do they go in the tank and, pretty much quit on the season after that bad loss to Jacksonville State, or do they sort of stand up and try to get the win versus Wake here?
Well, I tell you what, this is a really hard coaching job right now for Florida State. Just like you said, it's going to be really difficult to keep the team in it. Their season's pretty much done as they're going to be looking at it. They've got a lot of tough games still ahead of them.
I don't think they can buy out another coach. I think they have like 15 on the books.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying
They
need to
might
get
be
another
the
coach,
only
but
other school other than Tennessee that's paying more coaches than our coaching.
I just don't know how you're going to salvage this season and find success after losing to a Division II team and then that real tough just nail biter against Notre Dame beginning of the year to not be able to pull that off. So they're going to have to find something to go in and get this road game against Wake Forest. I'm staying away because I don't know how it's going to turn out. I think there's talent on this Florida State team. And we'll just see if they can put it together.
Yeah.
But I'm staying away from this.
I have to admit, I'm leaning a little bit Wake here because I feel like Florida State is going to roll over, and I think Wake will put it on them. I think they did it maybe 2 years ago. Maybe it was last year. I just remember one game when Florida State went into Wake and Wake just thrashed them. I have a little bit of that feeling like, if Wake can blow this out, they will blow this out and make, Florida State look bad, which a lot of teams, I think, like to do because Florida State did it.
They don't get the chance very often.
Florida State did it to them for a solid 35-year stretch, and now everybody can get their payback as Florida State has fallen completely off the map. But I just want to see if Florida State can battle back. I think Florida State has equal to better talent than Wake, but I'm curious which one shows up, the one that will play hard and battle back in that Notre Dame game, or the one who played a tight, gross game to Jacksonville State and didn't look like they wanted to play football. Interesting game. I think I lean a little bit Wake. I haven't quite pulled the trigger on that 6.5 there because basically if you stare at this and see Wake as a 6.5 point favorite, no matter where your brain is, unless you've been born after 2013, which you probably shouldn't be looking at spread lines anyway, you wouldn't know that Florida State versus Wake Forest.
You probably started that.
It borders. Maybe a little young. But I'm definitely old enough where Florida State versus Wake Forest was always a 35-point spread, no matter where the game was played. Interesting one. I think I lean a little bit Wake here, but I want to see how the Florida State bounces back and battles in this one. All right, next up, USC versus Washington State. Washington State getting 8.5 points here. We only mentioned it on the show before because it had just happened, but Clay Helton canned 2 weeks into the season. Why this wasn't done, I don't know. In May, January, February, March.
I think they wanted to fire him last year. I don't know why they didn't. Maybe COVID that played a role. Maybe the guy they want wasn't quite available. I don't know. I just think this was a predetermined outcome, and they were just waiting for their chance. They were like, "Oh, we lost the game. We can fire him now."
Yeah. The only problem with that is, once again, if you know you're going to fire him the first time he loses to a team that you don't think is up to their caliber, once again, March, April, May, you're going to fire the guy, fire him. Don't pretty much self-sabotage your season. I mean, I know they lost that game to Stanford, but that doesn't mean other Pac-12 teams weren't going to lose Pac-12 games. I think this just crushes them, and I think they go into Washington State and probably blow this game too. So,
well, you said those south to north games are really tough.
Yes,
so
especially since if you look at the weather, 57 and rainy. So it's
that's
already
not LA weather.
It's already starting up in the Northwest there. So I just don't know what Stanford's going to bring to the table. It's a little bit like the Florida State situation. Washington State has not been great this year. Tough loss to open the year at Utah State. I don't know if we thought that loss was coming. Utah State's been a little bit better, I think, than we thought. But just curious what you make of this game. Do you think we're getting good USC? Do you think we're getting bad USC? Do you think this season's just a wash? They pack it in, and pretty much any game that they don't get off to a roaring start to, they probably lose.
honestly,
I think they're replacing their quarterback as well. The Keldon Slovis era ended. Maybe he can transfer to Georgia and get a restart on that career as well.
Yeah, the next Heisman hopeful at Georgia.
Yeah, they continue to get USC failed quarterback transfers.
I really can't get a feel for this game. Honestly, it just depends on how USC rebounds after losing their coach. I'm shocked that they lost to Stanford as bad as they did because I thought they looked really impressive against San Jose State first game of the year.
Yeah.
I thought,
Theoretically, San Jose State might be a better team than Stanford.
Yeah, so I really don't understand that Stanford loss, and I thought USC was probably going to win the Pac-12 this year, but
I think I'm more confused at how they gave up 42 points to Stanford, who looked versus like K-State like they could barely get to 10. So
yeah,
I think that's where my confusion came in is how do you let Stanford coming off that terrible game versus K-State where they didn't even look like they belonged on the field with K-State and have them come into your stadium and then give up 42 points to Stanford? Just I don't know. I don't know what to make of USC. I'm hedging a little bit here that this thing gets packed in and everybody starts their moves into the transfer portal or the NFL.
Yeah, I think USC is going to have to try to get the biggest hire they can get, which, being USC might not be as hard as some other places. I heard a rumor today that they're hoping to pull Bob Stoops out of retirement.
Is that an upgrade?
It's excitement anyway.
I guess so. I don't remember him winning all that much his last 10 years. But anyway, interesting game. We'll see where that one fits. Speaking of teams that are hot off the mark, Arkansas plays Georgia Southern. I think I was a little more hyped about this game 2 weeks ago than from what I saw from Georgia Southern last week.
Yeah.
It's interesting because Georgia Southern will come with their option offense. Arkansas is they aren't an option team, but they're certainly an old school type running team. So this game might be low scoring, and I don't know. Coming off a big win versus Texas, do you think Arkansas blows this out, or do you think this might be a little tighter than you think?
I think Arkansas blows this out. I think they've got a lot of momentum going, and they're having a lot of fun there. Pittman's done a great job at Arkansas. I think he was the perfect fit for that school. And this might just be close to the second best team in the West. We'll see. It's quite a crowd there behind Alabama. But I think Arkansas takes care of business this week.
Yeah, I definitely, from what I saw from Georgia Southern last week, a little bit disappointed. Thought they'd come out a little bit better last week. But I do think as both teams are, heavy run style, it tends to make for close games. We'll see if Arkansas has a little bit of a letdown off that big Texas win in that one. But the next one, I think I'm a little bit more curious about. Mississippi State goes to Memphis. Mississippi State started out with a poor game versus Louisiana Tech, found a way to win it, and then had a really, really good game versus NC State.
Yeah.
Sort of dominated that one on the both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Memphis, easy win versus Nicholls State in a sort of nothing game, but I thought a pretty good win, 55-50 versus Arkansas State. Mississippi State goes to Memphis here. Little bit difficult place to go. Memphis has come up and beaten a couple of these middle tier West teams in the SEC the last couple of years. So what do you make of this game?
First off, I don't think any SEC team going to the Liberty Bowl is a difficult road game. I've been there. It's not impressive at all.
I think that's why it's difficult. It's not impressive. It's a concrete block of death.
But yeah, Memphis's offense has been really impressive. Mississippi State, they had that struggle week one, but really took care of business. Surprised me. I had NC State picked, but I just can't get a read on this one. I've wanted to go both ways, so for that reason, I'm staying away. just because I'm not confident in either one of these teams, but it should be an entertaining football game.
Yeah,
sure.
I'm curious how this game breaks out. I think it might be a little bit more defensive than we might think. Mississippi State certainly played a pretty solid defense so far to start the year. And Memphis coming into the year was thought to be a little bit better defensively than offensively. That didn't quite play out in the last game versus Arkansas State, where they went back to their former Memphis ways and just started trading points the whole game. But I'm curious how this one plays out. I give a slight edge to Memphis, but I wouldn't be surprised if Mississippi State goes in there and gets the win. It'll be a good sort of bearing to see where Mississippi State's talent lies, because in the last handful of years, I think Memphis probably has had a better sort of football team, but we'll see where these two even out in this one. That should be a good game. Next up, we're going into a School of Journalism versus School of Doctors. So Northwestern versus Duke here. Interesting game. I don't think it will be all that entertaining to watch. Northwestern has struggled to score. Duke's been a little bit better on the offensive end than Northwestern, probably a little worse on the defensive end. Northwestern, got a okay win versus Indiana State, 24-6. Once again, the offense not there, but the defense showed up. Where do you make of this game? Duke did manage 45 points in their last one. They did end up getting 28 versus Charlotte. I'm leaning a little towards Duke because I think the offense is there, and I don't think the Northwestern offense can compete with Duke. But where are you sitting on this one?
Yeah, if I had to, gun to my head, take a team here, I'd probably lean Duke. But I just think it's going to be an ugly football game. I would probably, if I had to make a play here, it'd be on the under 50. I don't think there's gonna be a whole lot of points scored here. But maybe just under that. I'd say maybe, close to the 20-20 range, something like that. But I mean, really flip a coin here. But not good football. Yeah. Going to be played in this one, I don't think.
The true tournament is this one versus the Vanderbilt Stanford game. The smart schools battle to have the title of intelligent football team.
Are these games going to be on like CNBC or something?
This might be on TV1 over Alabama and Florida. I don't think it will make that. I don't even know if it'll make the top four, depending on what bets are where. But next up, I'm a little curious about this game. Arkansas State travels up to Washington. Difficult place to go to and win games.
Put up 50 against Memphis.
But what we've seen so far, Washington, who is a pretty big favorite here, 16.5 points. I'm not sure they've come close to scoring 16.5 points in a game so far. So how do you think this plays out here?
Boy, I've been staring at this one since Monday. I really want to go Arkansas State here because I just, it opened up at 16.5 and I was like, I don't think Washington can score 17 points.
They have 17 total points to start the year. So
let alone beat somebody by 17. So
one of those teams being Montana as well, mind you. It wasn't like they started out with the Legion of Boom here.
Well, no, I think Montana's defense is probably better than Arkansas State.
I'd probably lean that, yes.
So
it's also possible Montana might be better than Arkansas.
If you're going to put up points against somebody, it's going to be Arkansas State. And Washington's looking for anything they can get now. Being at home, that's a tough place to go. I want to go Arkansas State here, but I'm not going to pull the trigger. I'm staying away.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning Arkansas State here, just because I think Arkansas State can score enough points to at least cover this spread. And if things get really, really bad for Washington, they might even blow this game. I'm also a little curious how long this defense sort of puts up with this offensive side of things. I've mentioned it's been a couple of years since the offense has really, really ran smoothly, but this is complete rock bottom. So how hard does this defense want to work to keep this team in the game when they know they're getting nothing on the other side? I think you saw a little bit of that in the Michigan game towards the end there. Every time, Washington was getting a stop, and then the offense would go out there, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, and then eventually Michigan just, put the game away by running it down their throats. And I just wonder if this Washington offense gets off to a slow start in this one. And we're, 3-3, we're 7-3, we're even like 7-0.
That spread's looking really good.
And
at that
then,
point.
The Washington defense is like, I'm really tired of working this hard and having a close game every week when we should be blowing this team out. So just curious how this game really plays out. Good offensive team in Arkansas State, good defensive team in Washington. The only thing that would leave me a little bit nervous on the Arkansas State side is them traveling up there to Washington. That's not going to be an easy place to go to and win a game from Arkansas State. So interesting to see how that goes. Next up, East Carolina versus Marshall.
I like this Marshall.
Yeah, I know you do. Marshall 10-point favorites here versus East Carolina. Hard to get a gauge on East Carolina. Played a pretty poor game versus Appy State. Theoretically played a good game versus South Carolina. You start crunching those numbers, it doesn't look quite as good, but they did manage to have that game in their hand before losing it right there at the end on a field goal. What do you make of this East Carolina-Marshall game?
I like Marshall big. I think East Carolina had points basically given to them by South Carolina. Other than that, they couldn't score. Marshall's really solid offensively and defensively. I think they're the most talented team in their conference. Marshall big.
Yeah, I think I'll be really a good gauge on where East Carolina is in this one. If it's, that South Carolina was just an aberration of South Carolina doing dumb things and giving them the ability to stay in the game, or maybe they're sort of growing from game to game and they sort of make their way in here. But I would lean Marshall here, but I'm curious if East Carolina maybe just growing a little bit. So I'll have a better feel about them after this week in that game. All right, next up, big SEC battle in theory, but not
2-0
but not in the point spread margin. South Carolina goes to Georgia, 31-point spread here. This seems large. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I think an SEC matchup with anybody that's not Vanderbilt, I think 31 is too big. I don't know how many points South Carolina can put up against this Georgia defense, but I don't know if Georgia's going to go out there and score 50 on South Carolina. And I think South Carolina can put up at least a touchdown or two.
Yeah.
We'll see. But I just think that's an awful lot of points.
It's a huge point spread. I wouldn't touch Georgia with that type of point spread. The only thing that worries me a little bit from the South Carolina perspective on this would be, you saw it, we mentioned it in the East Carolina game. They gave East Carolina points. If you're giving Georgia points, and then you assume Georgia gets some points, I know sometimes it's hard to believe that Georgia scores points, but I assume they score points. Then that gets a little nerve-wracking. I still don't quite know what to make of that South Carolina offense. It didn't look great versus East Carolina, but then again, they shot themselves in the foot a lot in that game. They did rack up yards, but that might be their thing. It's been their thing for a lot of years. Sometimes a lot of yards, not much substance. So that's where I'd be a little nervous, sort of taking South Carolina on that side of things. But I would not touch Georgia as a 30-point favorite in any conference game, even one versus like Vandy. That just seems conference games, 30 points. That's just that's danger territory to get into. But should be interesting to see how Georgia handles that 30-point spread in that one. Next up, Utah going to San Diego State. Tough little 2-game road stretch here for Utah.
Yeah.
At BYU last week, didn't play great, but, tough place to go. But another tough place to go here. This should be a real tight defensive battle. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I think Utah's really been struggling to put things together offensively. I don't think Charlie Brewer's come in as hot as they'd hoped he would. Got into a tough road game last week against BYU. And the San Diego State team is the team I'm really starting to come around. I think they've played really well. And I think this could be a really tough matchup for Utah. And I think San Diego State's getting a lot of points here.
Yeah, the point spread, I think, is pretty high here for San Diego State. The only thing I'd say is San Diego State has played Arizona and New Mexico State, two teams who, we don't put on a very high level
Yeah.
defensively. We know San Diego State will struggle offensively versus really good defensive teams. Despite what we think of Utah's offense, we definitely think the defense will be there. So I'm curious to see where San Diego State's offense lies versus a really good Utah defense. But we've already seen Utah's offense place two good, solid defenses here and not been great on the offensive side of the ball. So I think this is just a defensive struggle. Probably not the most entertaining game to watch, but could be a competitive game to watch. But I thought 9 was a little bit high here when we haven't seen Utah really be able to open up offensively in a game.
Well, that's the biggest thing. I was really big on Utah's chances earlier this year, but I thought their offense was going to come out a lot more explosive than what it has. Maybe it'll click this week, but I just don't know if the road game at a pretty solid defense in San Diego State is going to be where
the other thing, if they struggle to score on BYU, and I think I put San Diego State's defense ahead of BYU's, I don't see why going from last week to this week, it would all of a sudden magically start coming together. Now, there wasn't a quarterback change, but I wonder how close we get to, Utah starting to rotate in a couple different guys. They have other guys who have experience, on that depth chart if Brewer doesn't start to come around. All right, next up, really good game, SEC Big Ten matchup. Auburn goes to Penn State. Penn State 5-point favorites in this one. Hard to get a gauge really on what Auburn is. They have scored 60 points twice. They've certainly let it be known that that's the greatest point total start to their history. Ignore that it's Akron and Alabama State that they've scored the 60 points on. What do you make of this game?
I can't wait to watch this game, honestly. I think it's going to come down to probably 3-point game. So I think that spread's a little inflated in favor of Penn State being at home, but I think talent wise, these are teams that are going to be really evenly matched. Penn State's looked impressive so far this year, but Auburn's coming from the SEC. I don't put a lot of faith in Bo Nix. His consistency is terrible. He'll have one game where he'll throw for 5 touchdowns and look like the savior. And next week he'll
mostly versus Alabama State and Akron.
Yes,
that's where I think his level lies.
But I don't know if he can go get this big win on the road. But I don't think the atmosphere is going to be as challenging to Auburn as a lot of people think it is, because Auburn plays day in, day out in the SEC. They're used to those big games. But I think it's going to be a really tight game. It could come down to who has the ball last.
Yeah, I'm not worried about atmosphere-wise. Auburn plays in big games, 6-7 times a year. Same as Penn State. But I do worry about scoring, basically from both sides of from both teams. Auburn scored, but this is a totally different level of defense they're about to stand into. And what we've seen from Bo Nix and this Auburn offense in the previous years, when they faced, really good defense, it's been turnover prone and sloppy and haven't been able to move the ball. But what we've seen from Penn State, especially the quarterback play, I don't know if they're capable of scoring a whole lot of points on this Auburn team. So I'm just curious how this game plays out. It might play out just like that Wisconsin game that we saw, a couple weeks ago, first Penn State, where, the games are basically decided by a couple plays. Neither team really has flow or cohesion on offense. So it probably will come down to which quarterback doesn't turn the ball over quite as much. I know that's a simplistic cliche, but really, basically, that's probably what it's going to come down to from what we've seen from both these teams in the previous year and, what we thought of them coming into this year, certainly from what we saw from Penn State versus Wisconsin. We haven't seen maybe this Auburn team has a new lease on life without Gus Miles on there. But we'll see. I'll believe it when I see it from Bo Nix, but should be a really, really entertaining game, certainly to see how this unfolds. All right, next up, ACC battle. Virginia starting the campaign really, really well. North Carolina has not started as well. I know we're both pretty big on Virginia here. How do you think this one matches up?
This has potential to be my upset pick of the week. I really like Virginia here. I just while UNC was able to put some offense together against a terrible team last week, I don't think I saw enough offensively from them against Virginia Tech to make me believe they have enough weapons to go in and just beat somebody with their offense like they did last year. And Virginia's been looking really good in these first couple games. Now it is at UNC, but I think you're getting a lot of good value with Virginia here. I think it was +9 or 8 last time I looked at it. I think that's a lot of points for a team that's actually looked better than North Carolina.
Yeah, I have to agree here. I think Virginia comes in here playing better offense, playing better defense.
Yeah.
You mentioned North Carolina scoring 59 on Georgia State, but they didn't score all that well in that first half. And that's more what I gauge from in those games versus the poor teams is how do you play when both teams are, healthy? You don't have to start getting into backups. You don't start getting into attrition for a team that has nowhere near the depth as you. And North Carolina, once again, it was better, but it wasn't what you'd think this North Carolina team was advertised as coming into the season. So I think they'll struggle versus this Virginia team who doesn't really give up a lot of big plays on the defensive side of the ball. And if this offense continues to play as well as it has this season, I really think Virginia can be a contender in the ACC.
Yeah.
And this game really will, if they can get this one, that'll put them right there as a contender in the ACC. All right, Central Michigan versus LSU. I'm curious about this game.
Yeah.
I wonder what LSU we're getting. More and more bad things seem to be coming out of the LSU side. Jim McElway on the Central Michigan side, he knows the SEC. Any chance of an upset here, or do you think LSU can manage to hold on this one?
I don't know here. I think Orgeron's going to have a really hard time holding on to his team this year. I think if they struggle a little bit too much, and it's going to be rough on LSU this year. But Central Michigan's not a shabby team.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Going into Baton Rouge, it's just going to be too tough. I might take that spread. That's awfully large, but I think LSU's got enough talent to come out and take care of business, but I just don't know if by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I basically want to know what's in the head of LSU right here.
Yeah.
Because Central Michigan isn't a team you can play around with. If LSU takes this game seriously, all the players are playing hard, LSU is going to win out. But if they start to wonder, don't want to be there, this game starts to get close in the second and third quarter, I have a feeling that LSU crowd turns the other way.
Oh, yeah. Could be some boo birds.
Yes. Moods start to change, and then this becomes a game. So I think it's really, really important for LSU to start off hot. If they start off hot, I think, they can manage to control it. I will say they didn't even look all that good versus McNeese State.
Yeah.
But, how good do you really have to look? But that's what I mean. They could sleepwalk through McNeese State. I don't think they can sleepwalk through a Central Michigan because if this game, as the game goes and the game is close, Central Michigan will grow in confidence and they'll sniff that they could get, a career-defining win for them. They can talk about it for hundreds of years when they walked into Baton Rouge and beat LSU. Now, mind you, it might not be a very good LSU team, but that's the only thing I worry about really with this one is how does LSU's mindset come starting this game? Because if this is close going into like the third quarter, I think the fans start to turn, players begin questioning things. And then momentum just sort of
transfer
rides.
portal.
Yes, things start to ride in Central Michigan's favor than LSU's favor, and But I think LSU definitely has the talent here, but I don't think I'd touch that 20-point spread. I don't think I'd touch a 20-point spread with LSU for the rest of the year. All right, this one should be offense-based, I think. Tulane versus Ole Miss. Ole Miss coming off a 54-17 win versus Austin Peay. Tulane coming off a destruction of Morgan State at 69-20. So how much defense will be played in this game? Will there be a stop in this game? And does the over 76 hit?
I don't know if I've ever taken an over 76, but this Tulane team put 35 up on Oklahoma, and Ole Miss doesn't seem to be slowed down by anybody. This could very well be a 80, 90 point game. So we'll see. I don't know what I'd look at here. 14 seems like Ole Miss should be able to get that, but they don't stop anybody. So who knows? Should be a fun game to watch for sure.
Yeah, spread wise, this is really hard to gauge, especially in these games where nobody is playing any defense. Points can just bam, bam, bam. I mean, it can be a 50-50 game, and then all of a sudden it's 64-50 in a minute. I really don't know how to handicap this one. I don't think I lean towards the Tulane upset, but I can definitely see it. But that being said, I can always see Ole Miss getting upset because they don't play defense. And when you don't play defense, you're asking yourself to have 2 or 3 bad offensive series, and then you lose the game. So I'm curious how Tulane comes in here and plays this. I mean, they can also sort of do the ball control thing as well, and maybe they limit possessions to Ole Miss. So I think this is a little bit more of a curious watch, especially in the first half, to see how Tulane plays it. And if this thing is tight, could be entertaining down the stretch for sure. All right, we spoke about it a little bit, but
The Brain Bowl.
The Brain Bowl, the part 2. Stanford coming to Vanderbilt. Stanford is now 12-win favorites on the road.
Getting a lot of credit for beating USC.
I'm curious what this line would have been a week before the USC game. But Vanderbilt coming off, do we go solid win versus Colorado State? It was a road win.
I think a road win after losing to ETSU is a good win for Vanderbilt, but I'm not touching this one either. We'll see, if Stanford can come in and win this one big, maybe they're legit. But like you said, they couldn't put any offense together against K-State. The other thing I sort of worry. Did USC just really blow it that bad?
I think we'll know. The other thing I worry about a little bit is this is technically Stanford's 3rd straight road game.
Yeah.
Technically the Kansas State neutral site, but they were not in Stanford. So, that makes me a little worried. 3 straight road games to start out the year. Granted, they aren't going into a cauldron of doom in Vanderbilt. But it is across country. I have no clue what to make of Stanford. Highly impressive, scoring 42 points the week before. The week before that, scoring pretty much nothing versus Kansas State. Not so impressive. Vanderbilt grinds out a win versus Colorado State. Not a very good team, but a tough place to go. And then loses to ETSU fairly badly. So this one I don't usually advise not to gamble on. I would not gamble on this game.
There's no telling what's going to happen.
Whatsoever. I certainly would not gamble on an 11-point spread versus Stanford in this one. So I think I'll just sit back and watch how this one plays out. I don't have a lot of feel for that one. All right. This next game up, I think this one's going to be very entertaining. Oklahoma State goes to Boise State. Oklahoma State's offenses look really, really poor. But Boise State only favored by 3. Is Oklahoma State the better team here? Because from what I've seen, Boise State has played pretty good this year. Oklahoma State has not played all that good.
Yeah, Oklahoma State has not given me any confidence in here, other than confidence in Boise State. This is another one along with that Cincinnati game that I just think the spread's too low. I think Boise, while they do have the loss, I think Boise State's the better team here for sure.
Yeah. Boise State struggled with Oklahoma State, I believe, about 4 years ago. Now that was going there, but none of those players are there. And I think Oklahoma State coming into Boise, that's just really, really difficult. And with them struggling versus Tulsa to score points, I just don't know if they'll be able to score enough points versus Boise State. I assume Boise State's getting into the 30s at least, probably 40s. Can Oklahoma State get that many points? I don't know. So I think that spread's a little bit low, but we'll see how this one plays out. I'm curious to see if maybe we just aren't used to this Oklahoma State style of play where it's a tight defensive game.
Going into Boise.
Yeah, or they're just a really bad team, and they've sort of had 2 easy wins versus bad teams that have not been impressive.
Yeah.
So interesting game there. Will be tough for Oklahoma State to go in there first. Boise would be a good win for Boise to get back after the tough loss to Central Florida. All right, next up, Arizona State.
Another good one.
Goes to BYU. Can BYU take control of the Pac-12 South here? Anyway, what do you make of this? This Arizona State team played 2 pretty easy cupcakes to start the year. I don't want to say hasn't looked bad, but I don't think has looked great. But it's hard to gauge when they pretty much know going in they're going to get a win. So what do you make of Arizona State here going into BYU?
I think this spread's really accurate. I think it's going to be a close 1-possession ball game. Both of these teams looking to make a statement. I really can't get a feel for it. I think Arizona State probably has more potential offensively, but going into BYU, that's going to be tough. Interested to see how that goes.
Which coaching decision in the last 2 minutes cost this team the game? Are you leaning more Herm or are you leaning more Shiitake?
I'd probably have to say Herm.
That's the only way I think I could handicap this. I feel like this is going to be a close, tight game, but then somebody's going to make bad coaching decisions in the last 4 minutes, and someone's going to have a really, really bad beat here. But I think this will be another good, entertaining game. I'm wondering if BYU can juice it back up after that Utah game at night. Now, they usually can. So back-to-back big-time night games here in BYU. So that should be a really, really good and entertaining game late. And to close out the night, our last game of the week, it's been one hell of a sheet of best games of the week here. Fresno State versus UCLA. Fresno played Oregon tough, now goes to the southern side of things. Can they play right now the leaders in the South, UCLA tough? What do you make of this one?
I'm big on my Bulldogs. I think 11.5 is large here. I think the way they played Oregon close, Oregon proved that they were a good team going in to beat Ohio State. Now maybe Oregon was overlooking Fresno a little bit here, but Fresno traditionally plays well on the road against the spread, and I think this is a very large spread. So I'm leaning Fresno here.
I think it's an interesting game here. I do think it sort of the thing I give a little bit of a handicap here is UCLA coming off a bye. They've had 2 weeks to prepare. They've had 2 weeks to get ready for this Fresno State game. So it should be a little bit interesting to see where UCLA, they've gotten some press now too, though.
Yeah.
Everybody's sort of picking them as their darling out of the Pac-12. Can they stand up to this Fresno State team? Can this Fresno State team play 2 good games here in the Pac-12 in 3 weeks? So played a good game versus Oregon. Now they have to go to UCLA, play another good game. I do think this spread is a little bit high, but I do think there's possible a little bit of a Fresno State letdown in this one after really battling tough in the Oregon game. Maybe this one doesn't, it sort of, Fresno State battles tough for that first half, and UCLA, which it's shown to do, was pulled away in that second half, much like that LSU game. So I'm really curious to see how this game plays out. Definitely South. All right, we got through it. Games of the week. Hopefully next week, maybe a little bit lighter slate, but we'll see how this week goes with a whole lot of entertaining games on the slate. But let's get into our picks.
Yeah, let's get through these.
All right, I got 16 picks on the day. What do you got?
Well, I've got two for Friday, but I'm going to save that for tomorrow's winning daily.
Oh yeah.
But for Saturday and one game Sunday, I have 17 picks this week. So very, very large slate. Like I said, there's a lot of action that I just couldn't stay away from.
All right, I'll kick things off.
Okay.
I'm going UConn plus the 34 versus Army. I feel like
Can UConn score a touchdown?
I don't know. I think my wager is more on
Army not scoring 34.
Army not scoring 34. I think Army gets this game over with quickly, and they can't quite get to 34. Maybe UConn can find a way to score, but I don't make my handicaps based on UConn scoring points. So I think this is more. I don't think Army can get to the 35 to shut this one out. So I'm taking UConn plus 34. Let's go Huskies.
Okay, my first pick, I'm going to take New Mexico plus 29.5 at Texas A&M. Terry Wilson can throw the ball. He threw some last week. I think the spread is a little too large, and they stay within 29.5.
All right, next up for me, riding the Purdue. I mentioned it. I'm going to take Purdue on the 7. I'm going to trust my eyes from what I've seen this year and take Purdue to cover the 7-point spread here versus Notre Dame. Thinking they've been the better team so far this year. So Purdue plus 7.
With my number 2 pick, I'm going to take Toledo to bounce back after a close, tough loss to Notre Dame, minus 14.5 versus a bad Colorado State team. I just think Toledo offensively is going to come out. They're going to bounce back strong, and they're going to outscore Colorado State large here.
Yeah, I'm going to continue in my stretch of taking Northeast powerhouses and ride the UMass train, plus 22 versus Eastern Michigan here. Mostly this is just Eastern Michigan played St. Francis, not a good subdivision team. One career conference title in their grasp, one career playoff in St. Francis's. That wasn't a good subdivision team. That was 35-7. That game in Eastern Michigan. I think this UMass team can cover that 22-point spread in UMass. I think Eastern Michigan has struggled to go there.
You play with that fire of UMass for too long, you're going to get burned.
No, I think this could be a sneaky upset special coming on Saturday. Maybe UMass first win in I don't know how long, but it's probably been a couple of years. But UMass plus 22 here versus Eastern Michigan for me.
Number 3, I'm taking Cincinnati minus 3.5 in Indiana. I think this spread's too small. Cincinnati's potential playoff team, they're going to dominate Indiana.
I will continue my cauldron of great teams and ride Kansas. The Jayhawks plus 18 over Baylor. Haven't liked the way Baylor has looked so far this year. I think going to Kansas and covering an 18-point spread, a little bit difficult for them to do from what I've seen so far. It wasn't pretty for Kansas versus Coastal Carolina, but I thought they were a little spunky on offense.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that 18. So far, Kansas, UMass, Purdue, and UConn. What could go wrong?
After that, I'm taking Colorado minus 2 at home versus Minnesota. I just think without Ibrahim, this Minnesota team is completely different. Colorado defensively is going to dominate this game and get it done.
All right, I will continue my great team stretch here. Washington State plus 8.5 versus USC. They've at least won a couple conference titles, so I don't feel quite as bad. But Washington State plus 8.5 versus USC. I just think USC's probably packed it in. We're already talking transfer portal here.
All right, I'm taking Auburn plus the 6 at Penn State. I don't know if they can quite pull off the upset, but I think it's going to be close, less than a touchdown game. I'm going to take Auburn in the points.
All right. I'm going Duke plus 2.5. This is a sheet of winners here. Lots of wins on my one. Duke plus 2.5 versus Northwestern. I think Duke's offense will be a little bit too strong for Northwestern to keep up. So I like Duke getting 2.5 at home here.
Next up, I really like Virginia. Plus 9, North Carolina. I'll probably take the money line on the upset. I just think Virginia's proven to be the better team so far. Love getting 9 points.
All right. Next up for me, Ball State +7 versus Wyoming. Ball State's not played as well as I thought they would to start the year, but I think their offense will come around here versus Wyoming. Didn't love Wyoming's defense last week versus Northern Illinois. That was a 7-point game. And I think Ball State's better than Northern Illinois. And I checked the weather in Laramie, 72 degrees. So we aren't in danger territory of 20-degree weather with huge winds. So we're still safe. We're still in summerish weather here in Laramie. So I like the Ball State +7 in that one.
For my 7th pick, I'm taking Boise State -4.5 at home versus Oklahoma State. I just think Oklahoma State does not have what it takes offensively to go into Boise and get a win.
All right, next up, I mentioned it a little bit, definitely hinted at it. Georgia Southern versus Arkansas. I'm going under 52.5 in this one. Georgia Southern hasn't really proven to be able to score points here.
Yeah.
Both teams heavy run sets. I think this will be a quick game, not definitely a ton of points scored, low possession. So 52.5 seems a tad too high. Going under on Georgia Southern and Arkansas.
So for the big Sunday night game, I've got San Jose State -6.5 at Hawaii. I think they're a much better team. They're going to go in and get the win.
Well, we can agree on one here. I got San Jose State -7 versus Hawaii here. Hawaii has not played all that well. And if you look at their schedule, they've been traveling to the mainland pretty much just as much as San Jose State has. San Jose State's actually coming off a bye here, so they've been able to sort of go down into Hawaii a couple days earlier, get acclimated, and Hawaii's gone back and forth for all 3 games so far this year. So I think it'll be a little bit more difficult for Hawaii here. I think San Jose State's definitely the much better team. Good to have that bye off that USC game. So I like San Jose State as well, -7.
Okay. For my 9th pick, I'm taking Coastal Carolina -13.5 at Buffalo. I think they're going to dominate this game, easily win by more than 2 touchdowns.
All right. Next up for me, I'm going to take it and go Arkansas State plus the 16 versus Washington. Until Washington can prove they can even score that many points, I'm taking the plus on those teams. Even if Arkansas State's defense might be a little porous, Washington's going to have to prove that they can score points on offense. So Arkansas State +16 for me.
Another blowout team I'm taking Marshall -10 versus East Carolina. I really like this Marshall team. I think they're going to dominate.
All right. I got a combo package in the next game. I'm going under on the San Diego State-Utah game, 44.5. Really do think this will be just a real sloggy defensive battle. And then I have San Diego State +9 as well in that one.
Yeah, I also have San Diego State +9. That's one I really like there. And I also have Northern Illinois +27.
All right.
Going into Michigan. My feelings on Northern Illinois have turned a little bit. I think they've performed well in their first 2 games, and I think they do enough to stay within 27 of Michigan.
We'll see how Northern Illinois, if they can keep that streak alive. Next up for me, I've been riding them all year long. We're going to continue riding them here. Charlotte getting +4 versus Georgia State. Georgia State been really poor on the year. Charlotte
Not nearly as good as we thought Georgia State was.
And Charlotte has been really good on the year. So if they're giving them points, I'm going to take them until Charlotte proves me wrong. And Charlotte +4 versus Georgia State here.
I'm going to take Virginia Tech +3 going into West Virginia. I was really big on this West Virginia team, but I'm surprised by Virginia Tech. I think they're going to get another big win.
Yeah, I'm going Virginia +8 versus North Carolina. And that one, we talked about that one. I just think Virginia's probably the better team. So them getting points, bully to me. So Virginia +8.
All right. In the big SEC matchup, I'm going to take Alabama to roll -15.5.
Oh, you're one of the ones going with the Bama.
Yeah. I think Florida's the trendy pick this week. A lot of people have been jumping on Florida, but I think Bama's
I definitely lean
destroy
that way.
Florida.
If it can get down to 14, I know where my money's going.
Yeah.
All right. We've ridden them a couple weeks in a row as well. UNLV +31.5 versus Iowa State. It's not been all that impressive, but they have managed to score points. So if you can score points in a spread that's over in the 30s, much like the Arizona State game, you usually can cover that. So if they can get to 15 to 20 points, Iowa State has not proven anything so far this year.
Especially not offensive.
Yeah, to warrant a 31.5 point spread. So I'm going to continue to ride UNLV +31.5.
Yeah, I'm going to take Nevada -2 going into Kansas State. Hurts me to say this. I think I probably would have gone the other way if Skylar Thompson had been playing, but I think that's the difference maker here. And Kansas State's just a different team without him in there. And Nevada offensively is going to take control of this game.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to take BYU plus the 4 versus Arizona State. I think BYU continues its pretty good play to start the year, especially at home. Arizona State haven't gotten really a gauge yet. First really big game for them. So my last pick on the day, BYU plus 4 versus Arizona State.
Okay, I've got 2 left. I'm going to take San Diego State plus the 9 versus Utah. You had this as well. I think that's another no-brainer. I think this could be another money line upset pick in my place. And then finally, I'm going to take South Carolina to stay within that 32 at Georgia. Not really been hugely impressed by this Georgia team. Not really been hugely impressed with South Carolina, but 32 is just too many.
I think that'll be a fun TV2 game as you try to grasp on as you watch the South Carolina quarterback play.
Hey, just run clock. That's all they need to do.
All right. Is that all our picks?
I believe that's no, actually, I forgot one.
Oh yeah.
I added this one on last minute. That's why I almost forgot it. But I'm going to take Fresno State plus 11.5. My Bulldogs going into UCLA. I think their run game, and they're good on the road against the spread historically. So I think they're going to cover the 11.5.
All right. That is all our
That's
picks.
all our picks.
And that's all our show. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of the action. We got our NFL preview and pick show tomorrow. We got winning dailies coming out, so you can make sure to get all our bets. Be sure to watch Saturday's winning daily so you get my parlay picks, my money line picks, especially if I adjust any of these picks from Thursday.
Don't forget Sparky's picks.
And don't forget Sparky's picks as well. A lot of picks coming to you on Saturday. Don't want to miss that.
Yep.
So like and subscribe so you get all our picks, all our shows, and you don't miss a thing. That's our show, and we're out.
Greenlight Network presents Football Time.